There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy.
You ever go fishing with your dad? You have a good old time, but you end up catching nothing? Well, let me tell you about the time I caught something, the biggest thing I ever caught while fishing with my dad. It's a great story. Stay tuned. Howdy folks, Brainstorm here, coming at you, enjoying the beauty and God's sunshine and the warmth inside my lovely Dodge truck. I want to share a story time with y'all. I haven't shared a story time in a long time. And I wish I had the story time scarf, but I don't. I just kind of wing it most of the days. You can tell, right? Anyway, if you do me a favor though, I'm just a small time YouTuber looking to make some creative distractions to give you a few minutes of your day to chuckle and laugh. And whether you're laughing with me or whether you're laughing at me, at least you're laughing, right, guys? And if you do me a favor, look down on your right down there. Yeah, click it, push it, click it right there. If there's a button down there, if it's red, make my day. Make that red button gray and subscribe to my channel because it really would mean a lot. It really does mean a lot. And just follow and like, comment, and all that good stuff because it really does help this channel. It really helps every YouTuber that you watch if you were to comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. My dad's been gone for a while now, and I've shared many stories with y'all. And this one is one of those fondest ones in my memory. And I thought, you know, if I'm going to do a story time, I need to do this story. I need to put it down for posterity, for my own self when I lose my brain completely, maybe, or my kids later when they're wanting interested in these kind of things. My dad I'm the youngest. And so I didn't get to do a lot of fun things later because my dad was older and my parents were older when I got older, you know, want to do fun things. That's not to say we did fun things. We did a lot of fun things. But my dad took me fishing was one of the fun things he loved to do. He loved to fish. And he'd tell me all sorts of wild stories about his fishing days with his brothers and with his buddies, you know, when he was young. How they would get somewhere and set up lines and just camp out all night. And it was a lot of fun. And my dad took me, when we went camping, you know, we would stay up all night. He would, sometimes to the public places where there people could come up out of nowhere, but a lot of times these out-of-the-way spots that only he knew about, that it was on somebody's land, that he had permission, and only he had permission to get to, and only he really knew about himself, because he'd been there many times in his youth and his young adulthood, and he took his kids there. We would just drive as close as we could in the truck, get out, set up camp, so to speak. We would just stay up all night by the campfire, eating some canned sardines and drinking some RC Cola or whatever he had on. We would set out a bunch of lines along the riverbank, and then we go back and check them with flashlight periodically, sometimes with a torch. Depends on what is handy, you know. And I don't remember ever catching a thing those nights, but I'm sure we did. And so somehow he always kept me entertained and fed the whole night through. I would pass out, of course, I'm sure. I pass out now at the drop of a hat. That's always been one of those things. My dad could nap anywhere. If he had 5 minutes, he could take a nap anywhere. And I'm getting to be like that in my old age, too, as my hair is turning gray. And my dad would say, all the men in our family kept their hair. It was better to turn gray than turn loose, he would say. So I'm grateful for that, don't get me wrong, even though as of late I've had some short haircuts. But my dad would take us out. We would go camping. We would go fishing like that. And some of the fonder memories I have of me and him fishing, when the water levels, when it was a particular drought weather, not much rain, the water levels would get really low in the rivers. And he'd like, let's go splashing. So we'd get our high waters on, or high boots or whatever, and we'd go wading out into the shallows of those rivers and casting out, and as soon as we hit a bed of fish, you know, bed of brim or whatever, we'd stay there for a while. My dad would get a stringer and string the fish along tight to his belt and just pull it along behind us. Sometimes he'd have a stringer on, sometimes I'd have a stringer on, sometimes we'd have 2 or 3, depending on if we were hitting them good that day. And then he would say it was the best time to catch them when the water level was so low. And that was some great times just wading along. I'm thinking, are there snakes down here? Alligators, whatever. I'm oblivious. Dad could do everything. Dad could protect me. Dad was the strongest thing in the universe, right? And I don't think my kids think of me that way. Maybe not. That's my fault more than theirs, maybe. But anyway, whatever. I love my dad. He was so immensely talented in every facet of life. He could build things, repair things. And I took after him a little bit about that. Just a little bit. But I love going fishing and going on adventures with my dad. But there was one particular adventure, fishing, that just stands out in my mind and is the reason for this story time. There was one adventure. It was later in his life. It was after he had retired, but before his accident, which had confined him to a wheelchair. And I'll talk more about that and other things. But yeah, my dad had survived many things. I've heard stories of falling off roofs, falling through ceilings, falling off ladders, having ladders fall on him, and all sorts of mayhem with tools and saws and hammers. But I've never known him to have had broken any bones or anything like that. Maybe he did, and I didn't know about it. But in my lifetime, I never knew that. But my dad did stubbornly, as he was older, try to get up on a roof and fell off and ended up breaking both his legs. And that was later, but that's not something I want to dwell on. But this was before that. We went fishing. It wasn't, the water levels were high, so we couldn't really go wading out in the river. So he's like, we're going to fish by the bank. We parked in a public area, and we're just kind of walking down the river. He would just have a cane pole in his hand, sometimes a reel, and some bait. A lot of times he wouldn't have much bait. Maybe whatever he had with him for lunch, just something, a cricket or two. Might have a cricket cage attached to his belt or whatever. But he wouldn't take much tackle with him, much anything really. He would just go walking down the side of the river trying to find the best fishing spot he could, that wherever they were hitting, pull them out as quick as he could. My dad loves a good pan fryer. Well, that particular day, we were just not catching anything. I was getting bored. This is me. I'm older, teenager. I know I'm too cool for school. Those kind of days, I'm too cool for dad. And I wish I could go back in time and spend more time with my dad. So let me tell you, kids, dads, spend time with your kids. Spend time with your dads now. Make those memories, guys. Make those memories that will last you a lifetime, because they are most valuable in retrospect, I promise you. But we eventually went our own separate ways. I just stopped fishing and was just tootling around. And it was getting late in the day, and I'm like, I lost him. I don't know where he is. So I go back to the truck. He's not there. I can't tell that he ever came back. So I have no idea where he is. This is no cell phones. My dad never had a cell phone. We we didn't have such things. So, you could holler. I hollered for him, but he was hard of hearing. And so I saw some other people that didn't know where he was either. So I got the bright idea. The river was pretty straight, where the big bridge went over the road. So I walked up to the bridge. It was a ways. Walked up to the bridge, got in the middle of the bridge, looking out down the river, see if I could see him. That was the best thing I could think of, which turned out that ways away, probably about, I don't know, half a mile, maybe a little bit more, on this muddy river bank. There he was. I could see him, fish to fishing. So I could tell right where he was so I could find him. It took me another 20 minutes, really, to get to him. 20, 30 minutes. Finally got to him. I can see why it looked a little odd, because he was knee-deep in mud. He was knee-deep in mud, I'll tell you, up to his knee. I was taller than him, but he was like, not like he had even noticed. He was just a fishing. And he would tell me later, it's not like I could do anything else. He was stuck in the mud. He couldn't get out. He said, I figured you'd come along eventually to come get me out. So I had to use my pole and fish my dad out of the mud. He'd grab a hold of the end so he could get some purchase. He kind of handed me all his stuff. And I didn't want to get down in that mud and get stuck with him, because that would not have been fun. But I just gave him the tail end of the thick end of my pole and kind of helped pull him out. And I didn't catch a thing that day, but a big old giant daddy. And it was the funniest thing. I giggled so much that day. And I told him, I was like, when I pulled him out of the mud, I said, without missing a beat, in the humor that he could appreciate more than anybody, I said, "You look kind of skinny. I'm going to throw you back." I don't think, and he chuckled, and we got back to the truck. Because he was just like covered in mud where he had tried to get out of the mud. But he couldn't. He just got deeper and deeper. It wasn't quite quicksand, but it was like he was knee deep in that mud. But I didn't catch a thing that day, but a big old giant daddy. And it was just the funniest thing to me. And when we got back to the truck, I was like, what was going on? He's like, I started pulling them out of the water like crazy. I was like, where are they? And of course, I should have known better because my dad was notorious for this. He had those work shirts, you know. He had pockets here and there. There was a fish in each shirt pocket. There was a fish in each, 2 or 3 fish in each front pocket, back pocket. He had fishes. He didn't have a stringer, apparently. And usually he might cut a twig or something to make a string, but he didn't have one. He couldn't reach anything. And all he had was his pole, and they were hitting too hard. See, they were hitting too hard, and he ran out of bait. But he was cut up. He had cut up one of the little fish that he had snagged. He used a compy throwback, you know. He cut up one of the little fish and used them as bait, and they were hitting that like crazy. And he just had like a dozen fish in all sorted areas of his pockets. It was amazing. He got them all out, and one of them was a pretty good hand size brim, and they're all pretty big. And you know, pan fryers, they were good enough to eat. My dad said if they're good enough to bite, they're good enough to eat. And we got them. We cooked them that day. Mama cooked them up. You know, there's nothing like fresh fish out of the river, straight out of the pocket and into the frying pan, guys. But that's one of the fondest memories I had with my dad. The day I fished my dad out of the mud and he had all those fish in his pocket. But I had a lot of great adventures with my dad. He taught me a lot of great things about carpentry, about mechanics. I still can't really change the oil worth a darn, but I give it a good shot. Because one time I changed the oil on my car that I had, and I hit the wrong plug, and I let out all the Freon in my air conditioner. And after that, I was a little bit more particular about what I thought I knew about fixing cars. Sometimes I just like to leave it up to the professionals. I can reduce a lot of good woodworking, but I am not so good with mechanics. Y'all have a great day, guys. I hope you enjoyed this story. And it probably didn't surprise you that I'm not a good mechanic. Look at the state of this truck. But I love my good old Dodge truck. My dad is a Chevy man, and he had a Dodge too later in his life, and he loved it as well. So, you know, you get a good truck, you get a good fishing story. Just sit down in your truck and tell a good fishing story to all the good folks out there in YouTube land. And I hope y'all enjoyed the story. I hope you have a great day. Hope you have many more, honest to God, good blessings in life. Go fishing. Take somebody fishing. Get stuck in the mud. Roll around. Go wading in the waters. Do something, guys. See you next time. God bless.
Oh, you are beautiful. No, really, you are. You're gorgeous. Look at that. Space-age clockwork. I love it. I've got chills. Listen, seriously. I mean this from the heart. And by the way, count those. It would be a crime. It would be an act of vandalism to disassemble you. But that won't stop me.